I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. You have a wide range of experience, which I'm thrilled about. Honestly, there's a lot of things related to things I've been thinking about with escape rooms in general that I hope we can dig into at some point. Maybe we can start just talking about your first experience with escape rooms and how that impacted you or how that really caught your attention.
Okay. I started off, I was actually living in Los Angeles at the time, and a friend of mine I've known since college, I had moved back to Cincinnati. I went to college at Ohio University. And he's like, "Hey, you're really good with puzzles and things. Have you ever designed an escape room?" I'm like, "No." So he kind of gave me the laydown of what it was. I didn't even really know what an escape room was back then. And I'm like, "This seems like fun." And he paid me, of course, but I did it remotely. And
Mm.
he really liked the puzzles and he built it all. But there were a lot of things that I didn't know until a little bit later. So he really liked it. And he's like, "Hey, I'm expanding. What would it take for you to move to Cincinnati?" So I
Wow.
actually packed up after 26 years in Los Angeles, and I moved to Cincinnati. Found a great place. It's good to just do something different because I've just been writing as much, but I realized that there's such a story element to escape rooms, and that's what makes it really fun. And
Hmm.
so I was able to use that in my background. I used to be a close-up magician, just trickery, and I knew enough about electronics that I could, do some mechanical stuff that way. And so we started building more rooms. I started designing. I became then the principal designer. But I found out things like reset time. Like the very first room I designed, the reset time was ridiculous. This is before I started realizing, yes, you want a lot of self reset puzzles. Like those are great,
Yeah.
visual puzzles. And so, I learned that really quick because it would take so the first one, they're just all these blocks on the wall that are all the elements of the periodic table. So each one
Mm.
had it engraved in there. Um, but you would have to take them off. And when you flipped them over, you could create this big puzzle that it had an answer, et cetera, et cetera. And I liked that puzzle because it's good for young kids because you can task them. They don't feel like once you figure out, wait a minute, there's stuff on the back of these blocks. Oh, wait, take them all down. Now there's a task that somebody can do. So even a
Mm.
little kid or somebody, at that point, it's not problem solving because you solved that you need to do this. And so even if that's a hint, you're not just giving them an answer. They still have to do something. So I realize there's a value in task oriented puzzles. However, that reset, putting all those blocks back on alone, took forever. God
Mm.
bless our the game masters who like had to reset the room. They got it down to a system. Then I started realizing just the different ways that people, whether it's a family or if it's a corporate event, we did a lot of corporate events. So as we're building more and more rooms, we opened up a whole new venue, which was called Escape Room Family, which I believe was the first family oriented escape room. And that was a lot more kinetic and physical, and the kids loved that. Yeah, but one of the things I learned also was that you want to force people to work together because I noticed, like, if a boss, like, so it's a team building, people would just follow the boss around, not,
Mm-hmm.
afraid to step up. But then you might get like a tattoo parlor and they're all over the place. Yeah, we found that creative people, like their industries were way better than like when the accountants came in. It was so analytical. Yeah, and I would say another thing that I learned there in those first few years was make sure, but I think I inherently did this, but you have to make sure that there is some sort of the information is provided if you're like looking at a data set, or for example, Morse code. Everyone knows what Morse code is, but most people don't know it offhand, except for
Mm.
SOS. It's probably the only ones. So if you're going to use something like that in a cipher, whether they're hieroglyphics, they're your own made up symbols, doesn't matter, tarot cards, anything can translate to a letter or a number if you want to create a cipher. But when you don't want to include trivia that only that doesn't exist outside the room.
Sure.
I think the best example, we actually once got kind of a negative comment about this. It was a Cincinnati-based escape room, and we had pennants for all the baseball teams. We had a Skyline Chili in there. It was funny. It was all these Cincinnati things. But you had to put the pennants up in a certain order. And I crafted this bizarre poem that was the mascot for each team. So if it was about, the large fish from the sea, it would be the Marlins. Now, if you don't know
Mm.
baseball, you're not going to know that.
Right.
So, of course, we put on the wall, you know, the current rankings of whatever. We made up the rankings of the team and made sure that everybody could, like, if you looked at that, you could go, oh, because the name is on the pennant. There's a picture of
Yeah.
a cardinal, and it's like St. Louis Cardinals, and it's in that order, and that was the order that it put them in. And it's like, yeah, so you don't have to know. I mean, the people who knew baseball were getting it faster, but someone was like, I didn't know anything about baseball. Like, you don't. That was the whole point. They missed that, but other people were like, oh man, I learned more about baseball from those baseball puzzles.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a challenging room when my partner said, we want to do a skyline chili room. Like, make this portion, because we always had multiple rooms to go into that all work together. And I'm like, how do you make a skyline chili room? Like, what the heck kind of puzzle? But it forced me to think outside the box, and people loved it. Like, just like how you could create puzzles in what looked like, just like a little diner. Obviously truncated. We didn't have a working kitchen or anything, but that was a fun thing to learn, is just making sure all the information is provided. Another thing is we practically had this written on the door above our office, or inside, so people couldn't see. As dumb as you think somebody is, they're dumber, essentially. That they will brute force, rip, tear. You'd think, why would anyone do that? But they will. We had a brand new room. It was a prison break room. And, we put do not touch stickers on things that, like, outlets and stuff. Like, no, don't be unscrewing outlets. And,
Yeah.
But one of the puzzles was just kind of dropping we had a broom handle with a magnet on the end, and you had to drop it down the drain to pull out the key or whatever. It's very simple. People are like, oh, because they find the clue that it's in the drain, and they figure out how are we gonna get down there. But we, in a rush, because they wanted to do the I believe it was Kroger's, because they came like once a month, and they said, hey, can you bump up the time? We were just finishing it, so we were there all night, and we did not put stickers on the bolts that held our sink into the wall. And the very first group, some guy had a pocket knife and unscrewed the sink from the wall. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
The only other, everyone else pretty much got it. Some people needed a hint, but and there's a little side note, is your hints shouldn't be the answer, but lead them to the answer. Something as simple as in that puzzle I described, a good hint would be, did you check the broom? The broom, they go over to that closet and they're like, oh, there's a magnet on up. Now they're put together, as opposed to saying, use the magnet in the sink.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that your clues, if they need a hint, don't fully give it away.
Nice.
Just to guide them. So that was one. But there was one solution that someone had, because we also had this really filthy looking toilet that we filled with water, and someone had to reach in and get it. And of course, it's just, paint and stuff. It's not really a dirty toilet. But it was awesome to see how many people like, you do it. No, you do it. But it's not real. Yeah. I don't care. You do it. And they'd have to reach in and get at one of the other pieces.
Yes.
But somebody, when they had the things because it was just a fake pipe on the ground. Like, it's not real plumbing on this sink. It was like a PVC pipe. And they go, well, we got to get water in there to raise whatever's up. Logical.
Yep.
So there was a towel or a pillow or something, or blanket on the prison bunk bed, and they started dipping it into the toilet and wringing the water. You just go, wow, you got to keep an eye on it, because people, that's a creative answer.
Yeah.
However, it was a mess because, of course, it wasn't sealed at the bottom.
I think that's something that's interesting, is when you're challenging people to think in different ways, trying to predict what those different ways are and how creative or out of the box someone might actually start thinking about things is hard. It's hard to predict.
It is hard to predict. And when you see it happen, you definitely learn a lot. But running an escape room, you learn so much. So I really enjoyed being on site. The process was much easier. It was refined. We had a whole workshop where we built stuff. I built most of the puzzles myself. Yeah, just to finish up they will do it. We had in that same prison break room, once they get their way to the warden's office and they got to go through his stuff and solve, to get to the next stage, we had a map on the wall of the prison. And I found some old prison building, whatever, an aerial kind of map, and I redrew it and everything to make it look like an old timey painting of the prison and whatever. But you needed a route. So we came up with the idea to have a maze in black light over it. Like, so once you did a certain thing, the black light would come on, then you could see the maze and you could trace. Mm-hmm. That's where we need to go to the whatever one.
Yeah.
So no problem. Well, not too far into it, somebody, I think they figured out how to activate the light. It's like, oh, and we always would have in the room little just whiteboards with a sharp, or not a Sharpie, but a dry erase, so they can make notes or whatever. They yank that thing off, literally, even though it's attached. They tear off the thing, and they do the puzzle with the marker on the painting.
Oh boy.
I was like, oh, but fortunately, it's dry erase marker, so it does come off easier. But you had used an acrylic-based paint, so it could wash off without ruining the painting. Had to redo all the blacklight stuff though, but we had to put a piece of glass over it.
Yeah.
It's just like, why would you draw on it?
Yeah.
Like, you're not thinking that, but they're in a frenzy, and I'm not mad at them for it. We did give them a pen, even though it was attached to the wall. So then, of course, there was also a big sign, "Do not draw on map." And I know that most people would walk in and go, "Who would do that?" Well, someone did.
Yeah.
That happened. Yeah.
Something you said earlier caught my attention. So you talked about the different kinds of roles that people might play in an escape room. So you talked about, like, for a kid being able to get like a task that they can actually methodically kind of go out. It's not really a thinking kind of a problem solving kind of a situation. It's more task driven. Besides those like task driven things and problem solving, what are some other roles that you picked up on that people really exhibit once they're in an escape room?
Well, I'll start off with one it's more of an emotional one, and that is, sometimes there's that leader who dictates, and it's like I said in the boss scenario.
Yeah.
But I also have seen what I would call the exact opposite, where a dad had brought like 5 kids in, and he didn't participate at all. He sat there, but what he did do is they're like, "Dad, I think." He goes, "Well, did you think?" And he was giving the kind of hints I was saying, like, "I don't know, did you double check that thing or whatever?" And he was just enjoying his children. Very different role, you know. But I guess what I like to do, and so did JW, is make sure that pretty much all the tasks required more than one person, which is actually a lot easier to do than you realize. That if you have 2 clues that are far away from each other, but they're fixed down, have to yell, but you could run back and forth, for example. But I mean, the classic one I've seen in a lot of escape rooms is where people have to hold hands to make the connection. It's something like that. You need a certain number of people. But that's just the physical aspect. I had an idea for a puzzle once that, because we had different walls, we had different rooms, which was great. Like this idea that on one side, people had a clue. Someone had a clue, and they would like push down a button or whatever. And on the other side, someone would flip up and reveal. It was kind of just the initial thought. And it's like, but they can't see it because it's on the other side of the wall. So they have to have somebody else out. And they're like, okay, try the next clue is this, because it would lead to the next clue. And then it's like, okay, this one, okay, this is, and so they would, go through this kind of weird maze with these buttons. But it was just I'm like, that's going to take forever to build all these little things. And then you have that wonderful eureka moment where it's like, why can't we just drill holes and someone just sticks your finger in? What does that say? Like, what does that say? They're like, oh, that just became a $80 puzzle as opposed to
that's cool.
in an hour.
There's so that kind of, I've seen that mechanic play out in some video games. There's a game I played called We Were There, which is kind of like 2 people are separate. One's in a library, one is going through a maze, and you have to sort of collaborate back and forth over like, I see this, you have to be good at describing things, or I think the game is called Don't Stop Talking or the bomb will go off, or stab.
I love that one. That one's an excellent example.
So something like that, it's that idea of like, you have to have that collaboration with another person, kind of like what you were saying, in that you're seeing one thing and trying to communicate and drive that collaboration between 2 people. Is that something that you pulled in from your experience with game writing and world building from that perspective?
It was actually a question raised by JW. He's like, oh, I like these mechanics, or this is a cool idea for a puzzle. How do we make it for more than one? He would always just ask, he's the one who literally brought it to me. And I'm like, huh. And then I would, by putting myself in that mode, like, okay, we've got the puzzle, but now how do we make that more, group worthy? Because there's also a lot of hide and seek in escape rooms. Like, you just got to find it. Which is also good for like kids. Kids I've noticed, love to look for shit. It's still
Mm.
Easter egg mentality, and so they really enjoy that. So you have to find a certain number of things, and this kind of brings me to another dynamic of multiple people, because some escape rooms I've done, they're very linear. You got to solve A to get to B to get to C to get
Yep.
to D, and that just is like a bottleneck that is frustrating. But for example, on our Sherlock Holmes room that we once did, when you come in, I mean, this was the first room I designed, the one that I didn't, where I had way too many blocks. But I'm
Hmm.
like, well, it's a mystery. And I go, well, there's our 5 main puzzles: who, what, when, where, why. That's what we got to find out. Very simple,
Okay.
story driven, but each one you had to solve all 5 to. In this instance, you had to like unlock a secret door to go get the prize, and you had to like escape with the treasure.
Hmm.
So ours was about finding something, and everyone always loved like, there it is, and that was the final puzzle. That was a group puzzle where they're trying to figure out how to get it. It's encased and whatever, and it's like, we got the treasure. How much time do we have left? And it created this kinetic energy that it
Mm.
always ends on this positive like little note. It's always great if you can have that last one, whatever it is, bring that so people aren't just mulling about, and
Yeah.
give them a moment. And if you use like a point system, because time is one thing, but if you fail or don't fail, that's so binary. But it's like, we're so close, for example, you can, with 3 minutes left, pop the treasure door like this. We could do it remotely, and then they're like, wait, what happened? Who do it? Oh my god. And so now they're just excited because they've got a shot. We've
Hmm.
given you that second shot. Now, yes, it did, but we could say, all right, well, you only solved 4 of the 5 main puzzles. You guys did really good. Congratulations. And so there's still a victory, even though they lost.
Yeah.
Because some people just are like, I have no idea. So you always want to like push for that. In the kids' rooms, we took that further, and you could win gold, silver, or bronze, and you got a
Okay.
medal. And what was nice is, so in that, I said it was very kinetic. And what you would do is you would get balls. So you would unlock a puzzle, and several balls, like little squeeze balls, would fall out. And there was like, best thing is like a we'll say like a basketball hoop, but a tube. And they had to throw these balls up in this target, and it would fill up, and that would show their score. And so some puzzles were physical puzzles that they had to like do a tilt maze, they had to work together to get a ball out or 2 balls out. So some of them were the balls themselves were part of, like, they could see them in the thing and they would unlock it. Other things led to keys, and we had these boxes that each one used a different key, and if you would turn it, you would get like 5 balls. And so it was very kinetic. And then, but there was one box near the wall that you could see, and there were like 20 balls in it, but there's no puzzle attached to it. And so people are like, wow, what is that? But they're doing all the other puzzles. And then we always did, with 2 minutes left, just open that up. It wasn't a puzzle.
Mm.
It's just the kids would go crazy, running around, get the ball, get the ball. And they're all just
Yeah.
throwing these balls everywhere. And so once again, ending on a positive note. It's worth more than the integrity of, you didn't solve it. People love solving it. It's like if you said, if I remember gym class, it was either pass or fail.
Yep.
That was it. That's no fun. But every other class, it's A, B, C, D, F. But there's a scale. I didn't fail my test. I got a B plus. You still
Right.
feel good, like I did well. So I feel like incorporating that, so people always have a sense of
Mm.
accomplishment, and even down to when they're done, pointing out, because you're watching, to give them clues and stuff, is letting them know, like, wow, you solved that one really fast. Always give them something like, yeah, that one
Yes.
usually gets people. It's like, they're like, oh yeah, and then they feel good. So making sure they walk out of there with a sense of accomplishment, like, instead of the, yeah, we didn't do it.
Like that.
So, but that's also story, the building to a climax. But the
Yes.
reason I mentioned the Sherlock Holmes, the 5 puzzles, is because now no one's bottleneck. They could be like, well, I'm going to work on this. Well, we're going to work on that one. And, they might need help. Like, oh, I can't figure this one out. Does anyone know blah, blah, blah? Has anyone seen a blue robin? A blue robin. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, whatever. Like, oh, wait, I think there was one over here, because now we put them in different spots. And now if you only have a group of 2, you're going to probably go, station to
Yeah.
station around the room. But with a group, that's really fun. So yeah, maybe they, you get a group of 8 there, and everyone's working. Yeah, there's probably a damn good chance they'll get out. But that's what we want them to do. We want them to have fun. And now they're all working. No one's standing back. And,
Mm.
because there's always a weak link. That's why task-oriented stuff is good. because they'll jump on that. Oh, I know what to do. I got this, and I'll figure it out. And they're doing the puzzle
Yeah.
because I'm contributing, and I just see sometimes so we were checking out some competition once. And of course, we know puzzles pretty well. We've seen so many, We were paired up with two other people. They were obviously on a date. It was a couple, and they'd never done it before. But we're like, bringing in, major league players at a little league game, at that point. But we're not going to we just wanted to check out this room. So, but we had to bite our tongue, I don't know, maybe that means something. And we both know the answer. We're like, oh yeah, we know that's a get this, or oh, we know you got it. But we don't want to ruin their time by just elbowing them out of the way.
Yes.
But it was kind of linear, that one. And so it was so hard not to say anything. So it was, we're literally given the hints as though we hadn't quite figured it out. I don't know, wasn't there something on the broom or what, and it's like, hey, wait a minute. So they're having a lot of fun, but it's taking a while because this was their first escape room. And then it's only then when we looked at the clock and went, oh no, we're not going to get out of this thing. So we just took over. We're like, okay, at this point, it's about winning. I'm like, well, what about this? And I'm like, you know that kind of part. And we got out. Okay. And the game guy was like, dude, I thought there was no way you guys were getting out. But it kind of goes to why the bottlenecking is a problem. That linear, this will open. It just, we could, I'd like to have said to them, or in which we did at some point, this combination has to work on one of these locks. And so, she'd go over and try the different locks. And I personally don't like it when you have to just now it's trial and error.
Yes.
If people got, 8 padlocks or whatever that are just rolly ones, and then they get a 4-digit code, well, then they just got to go check all of them. There's no fun in that. But if they're color coded, or one lock has 3, one has 4, one has 5,
yes,
that's different. Or one has the letters instead of the numbers. Okay, now I've created a new knowledge base. These locks are all different. And so somebody's going to have a moment that they enjoy like that aha.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah, no, this one had letters on it, not numbers.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So now that's the collaboration because they've observed this already. So creating the link is better than, because otherwise you're just checking each one. That's not fun. So that's something is I like to make sure as well that there's a clear and logical link. Now they can just try them all, but at the end it's like, oh, you can tell them that, you're right. You know, that one was hard, and you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, that would have made it go faster or whatever. But there's always a reason. Another thing I really like is making people feel smarter than they are.
Sure.
Now that's tricky to do, but we'd have a few puzzles where people are like, they go, I can't believe I got it. I can't believe I got it. They arranged it in a certain way, but we make the puzzle look harder than it is. There's an old, actually, let me grab it. This is kind of fun. This was like an experiment for this idea. Pretty much designed everything on my iPad. I think this is the one. I'll just show you. Just give you an idea. It looks daunting. How long is that going to take? But what if you had only 5 seconds to solve this? Could you?
Sounds difficult.
Do it. 5 seconds.
I only see half of it, but...
Oh, sorry. I don't...
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So there's the numbers at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. So start at the top, and you're going to get an answer. Which number?
Okay. And it looks like 3.
Look how fast you did that. I do believe that's the answer. Yeah.
All right.
Now, that makes you feel like, wow, I just solved that in a matter of seconds.
Right.
But if you were to actually look at the puzzle, most of it actually doesn't connect to the main puzzle line.
I was going to say, yeah. There were only a couple.
Yeah, you're like, no, but maybe you just think, maybe I guessed in a different direction, the right direction that first time.
Yeah.
Wow, I really got that fast. And then I have a version of this that's a regular puzzle.
Yeah.
And that would take people, such a long time. And so, I always wondered how to really utilize that. Because I think if it only shows up for it's backlit and it only shows up for a short period of time, then it's gone. You're like, shit. I've got to start the thing again. You got to activate the thing because you only have a timer.
Yes.
But then they're like, wow, I got it on the first try. and that's what they're thinking. So they feel smarter. But I realized what would be
Mm,
fun is if I had the difficult version of that, but I didn't put numbers at the bottom. It's just like, maybe something else, and you had them in the lobby or whatever. Like, oh, like this,
yeah.
we're gonna have, see if you can. And then they're like, wow, this is really hard. So when they see the real one, they're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it took me forever in the lobby. There's a way I could have done that. It's just prep
Sure.
them, make them feel
Yeah.
stupid so they can make them feel smart. But
Yeah.
that's always a nice thing is when people, uh, yeah, and
When you
also laugh.
recognize that connection to something you've seen before, you have that like, I know this moment, like
Mhm.
I've seen this before, like I got this, and it really, it can it can show up in different ways in different kinds of rooms, but I like that idea of presenting something that looks impossible or whatever, and when you get it in a short time span, you're able to solve it really quick. It gives you that really big hit of dopamine, like I did that, like that's a good accomplishment.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever seen the paragraph? I used to do this as a magic trick, and it would blow people's mind. But where as long as the first and last letter are in place, then you can
Mm,
kind of read it, and you're like, read it
yeah,
pretty well. Have you seen
yeah,
that before?
yes.
Okay, what you do is you write that same sentence, but you don't follow that rule, with the
Mm,
exception of the first word. And I would have people like, oh, see what that says. And they're like, and I'm like, okay. And then I would just like cover it, but there's actually a switch involved. And I'm like, I'm just going to tell you, you're smarter than you realize. Whatever, abracadabra, try it again. And then they still see jumbled words and they're like, the quick brown fox jumped over the holy shit. And
yeah,
they just think that I just got a power, but there was
yes,
a switch there. So, but that's another thing is you could have jumbled words, but then you're like, man, I can read that right away.
yes,
Why? So
yeah.
things like that are really fun to hunt out and find.
So when you obviously you have a large background of writing for screen, for video games, for all sorts of different things. When you're writing those things, do you still also have, hidden things that, you're putting in place to sort of like seed throughout the book or the screenplay or whatever that people kind of pick up on and have that same kind of a hit of like, wait, I think there's this thing that I noticed, and it sort of brings people together to speculate about the hidden aspects of that process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, yeah, uh, in like screenwriting, if people are having a fight in a bedroom near the climax, the guy reaches under the bed and pulls out a knife, and the hero wins. You're like, well, where the hell did that knife come from?
Sure.
But if you have a scene way earlier where he doesn't want his girlfriend to know that, then she comes in and she's like, honey, and he's like, oh, and he quickly tosses it under the bed. He's like, oh, it was just
Yeah.
whatever. We now dismiss that as now when you think back, you're like, oh, a lot of movies
Right.
or books do that where they plant it, but they give it false reasoning. Like they
Mm,
give it a reason to be there. They're like, oh, he he didn't want her to know that he's secretly in the commandos or whatever.
mm,
But then when it shows up, he remembers that moment, and so that gives my hero power. He remembers hiding it under the bed, and it saves his ass. So it doesn't seem like Deus Ex Machina. So in the
right.
escape room, there's two ways I like to do that. Is one is you present information that, because especially if you don't have the luxury of more than one room in your escape room, you can still do it by having something within a container. But you don't know what's in that container, but there's information outside that you're trying to solve as a puzzle. Like, what does this mean? And as you progress and solve the other things and open up the trunk or the door to the next room or whatever it is, suddenly it all makes sense because I've been trying to figure out what these five symbols mean or whatever.
Yeah.
These lines of a poem or, why were these passages highlighted in his diary, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, but they look like a puzzle. But then you get the final piece when you open something else. But it's like what you said. You go back. Your mind rushes back to I've seen that.
Mm,
That's the painting from the other room or whatever. So that's always great to do, is give them a lot of the information up front, and you have that linchpin thing. So yeah, so that'll eat up some time. Them trying to figure it out. Like maybe we're missing something here.
yeah.
You know what it is? It's the I should start calling it this. It's the map room from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can tell how old I am because I didn't say Indiana Jones in the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Um, but where the bad guy that had the burned the medallion onto his hand,
Yeah.
but then when Indy finds out, he goes, but go back, 10 kaham or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they're digging in the wrong place.
Mm.
This saw like everything, the map, the staff, the height, the everything they
Yes.
need, but that's the final piece. That's why it didn't work. So that's I should call that the
I love that.
map room use. But yeah, you don't need to just throw a bunch of pieces at them. Give them something to work with because now people have stuff to do. I'm trying to solve this. I'm trying to solve that. You know,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah. So you talked about a couple different rooms, Sherlock Holmes being one. You just mentioned Indiana Jones. Those are episodic type things, right? Like you have Sherlock Holmes who has an infinite possibility of number of stories of cases that he's going to solve. You've got
right.
Indiana Jones with the amount of adventures he could possibly have. Still today, somehow we're making Indiana Jones movies. One of the things that I think feels like it's an emerging problem to solve with escape rooms. Maybe it's not emerging. Maybe it's been around for a long time. People are thinking about it, but how do you continue to evolve your rooms maybe in the same world built universe, whether it's Sherlock Holmes and you've got a different case that he's solving, but you've got
Right.
a core, like you've got his office, so you can essentially create any number of puzzles in that same room. How do you see that being something in terms of replayability for people to come back? Like I hear escape rooms and they're like, we've got these two rooms. Once you've played the two rooms, there's no reason for you to come
Right.
back. So how do you think about world building in terms of maybe those episodic experiences where it's the same, world built universe, but maybe a different approach or a different kind of puzzle or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We wanted to do that with Sherlock Holmes, actually, but then we got involved with the kids' room in that property. So we just kind of let that one be the bread and butter as we were building and stuff. But yeah, I was actually in the middle of designing a whole other using the same furniture, the same basic layout, but different puzzles. One thing I would like to see is that because sometimes people, they'll try to look up the answers online and stuff beforehand, and things like
Yeah.
that. Is there are certain puzzles you could revolve weekly relatively easy, at least because there's knowing how to doing to or figuring out how to solve a problem and actually solving it. And so if someone walks in with the knowledge of how to solve it, but the answer is going to be different, they still have to go through the process.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I was debating on how we could just change things up really quick. Like I mentioned that block one, but don't ever do that. There was so many pieces. But if, for example, just jumble them up and then so it's totally different order, and then redid the clue on the back.
Mm.
Like not, you still have to do the task. You come in and go, oh yeah, the answer's in the back of the things, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, they don't remember what the order. The order's different. It's like I have to solve a different. It's
Yeah.
just getting a different jigsaw puzzle. You could still have a jigsaw puzzle, but to me, the favorite moments are those aha moments where they're like, oh, this is what we have to do. The key down the sink. Once they figure that out, I mean, how do you change that? Uh, and that's I would like to see a place that can revolve at least, in my mind, I'd like to be able to do it all the time.
Yeah.
But, reasonably, like every 2-3 months, what can you do? How can you mix it up? Because, yeah, different keys, different places. I think just even adding a few more puzzles in,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's always tough. Like when does a room get saturated too much that people are not going anymore? And what do they do?
Yeah.
They just go to your competition.
It's true, and I think there's been one room that I've played. It was out in Arizona, um, that had an element of this that really got me thinking about it, and the way they approached it, it was an Aztec or Mayan kind of a room, and so on the one hand you were an explorer coming in to try to find the treasure. On like if you played the alternate version, you were essentially an Aztec or Mayan person trying to hide the treasure from the explorer. So you
Oh,
approach it
that's
from
interesting.
both sides.
Wow.
And one thing that was really interesting was you talked about how like having complex puzzles and stuffing, resetting the room was difficult. But in this case, when I was talking to the guy who ran the place, he said when we run those back to back, because they can run them back to back, it almost resets the room for you.
That's
So
what I was thinking about.
the
Yeah,
person
I was
doesn't
just
have
gonna
to
say that.
actually reset. So you can run these rooms back to back to back and just flip flop which one is available. And I thought that was so neat, although because the experience was, it wasn't just like putting things back where they're supposed to go. There were different puzzles in the room that were obvious to us, like this is a puzzle that needs to be solved, but it wasn't part of our playthrough because we were the explorers. It was part of the Aztec version because you were unlocking a different piece to put away. So I really liked the concept of it, but in practice, we spent so much time looking at this puzzle trying to figure it out, but we couldn't find any clues in the entire place that was related to it because it wasn't for our playthrough. But like
Did they tell you that up front?
they didn't actually.
That's the simple solution right there. I see what problem you're running into.
Yeah.
It's like you can either enter this room as an explorer or an Aztec. Now, both sets of puzzles are in there. So half of them do not apply to you. So you need to figure out which ones are for you and which ones are not. Now, just knowing that, it's like, oh, that's written in weird Aztec. So I don't think that's for me, but it might be. It might be like, oh, I found the journal. Hey, that's the same, whatever, hieroglyph.
Right.
Like that, yeah, that's a
I
fun
think it was
challenge.
really I think it was really neat, like to see a space to be able to transform between those two, ways of interacting with it. And it really got me thinking about, again, these episodic experiences, which was one of the reasons that drew me to talk to you, because you have this experience of really building worlds outside of a contained unit. You have an entire, you just released a book, well, several months back, Dark Ender and Light Giver. And so there's this world that you've built that exists in this. Like I watched the trailer that you have with the map, and it seems like a very vast place, which you couldn't encapsulate necessarily in a single room. But the idea of building an escape room in that universe where right now it's this, right here this is another sort of adventure along that same storyline. So for me as a player, I almost embody the main character role of the person interacting with the environment. And I can come back, maybe on a subscription or maybe just time after time to be like, I want to take it to the next step. I want to go to the next room. I want to like, almost like a video game, like a live action video game where you're solving the puzzles in person that maybe are part of that world, but I get to do it and go through and experience the entire story live in my own experience. I think that would be really cool. Logistically, I have no idea how that would happen. Like I've never built an escape room. My son worked for an escape room here locally, so I got a little bit of the behind the scenes of how those things run. But I'm so like, for me, I love video games, so I love solving those kinds of puzzles, and I would love to have a real life version of something like that where I can experience an entire story.
Yeah, and that's you look at like, for example, if you got astronauts on some deep space mission, and you have a fun intro that I mean it's Star Trek, explore new worlds,
Yes.
and to create a overstory, and you label this as whatever mission one,
Right.
whatever star hunters mission one, and then especially if you succeed, they get a token or something to keep it, basically a coupon that it's off. You get a percentage off mission two when that comes out, and so you watch the sales. You can redo the room, but maybe if you've got a core spaceship, and information's on screens. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Totally.
Like stuff is more physical. Um, then it's like, oh yeah, the new one came out, and you push out all the information to all the people who signed up, and did the room. Because I think, for waivers purposes, you get their emails. So it's like, boom, two's coming out whenever. It's like, oh, I still have my ticket. I mean, that I like that you have a meta story and you have a world and we can see that world. And it's like, man, eventually we'll get to the end of the universe or whatever.
Yeah.
But that would allow you to keep certain core pieces. And one of them, it's got to be a damaged ship. Like, we were attacked. How do we
Yes.
survive the vacuum of space? It's going to mess up your thing a little bit. We sort of mentioned this before, but self-working puzzles can be swapped out pretty easy. I love self-working puzzles. So I started making more of those. And I've done some consulting on other escape stuff. I don't even know if I have it on my resume, but where like event planners have called me and they want to do escape challenges. Well, it's all got to
Mm.
be resettable.
Yes.
Or, because they're just, once they leave, the information still got to be there. Yeah, there's so many ways and puzzles that you can create that are just visual, or the mechanics themselves. One of the things I love doing is running around like Home Depot or Michael's or IKEA, just looking for something weird. And just like going, can I make a puzzle out of this? If I
Mm.
had to, what would it be? And you can make a puzzle out of anything, is what I discovered. So sometimes it's fun to come from that story point of view. Like with the prison break, the warden was corrupt. He secretly had this treasure. We learned this story. Can you find out what the warden was up to? You were wrongfully imprisoned. So they're like, okay, we got to figure out. And when you break into the warden's office, you're not just solving a puzzle. You're trying to get this guy. So creating that story. But anyway, the point is, I was going through IKEA and they had these like coat hooks, and they kind of like snapped up and then just kind of fell open, and it had a little hook on it. Like, oh, you hang your jacket on, but then it kind of snapped back in place. I just look at it and I go, oh, if it's upside down, you could lift it up and it would fall
Mm.
back down. So I put down the hallway. I put 20 on each side, and underneath each one, it had a letter or a code or something.
Mm.
And so you didn't know what it was because there were so many letters. But eventually you find on this placard, arrow up, 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 down, down, up, down, 20 and 20. And they go, oh, that's the positioning. But
Hmm.
it's so far. And if you do it to yourself, you go 1, 2, 3. Okay, up, up, up. Wait, what was it again? Because it's
Yeah.
far away. So now you got people standing in the hallway. And if you had like 6 people, everyone takes a section because they're far enough apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, up, up, down, and they hold them in place and they eventually get the message. They solve the puzzle. They just let go, reset for the next one. But it was because I was going through IKEA and I'm like, oh, look, how would I make a
Yeah.
puzzle out of this thing? Uh,
Inspiration can
so
hit anywhere at any time.
yeah. And if you go in with that mindset, especially, depending on, because I was doing something space wise, you might be going to a different store looking at stuff. And yeah, anyway,
Yeah. Are
um,
there other places? Obviously, going in and looking to be inspired wherever you are is a great idea. Are there any specific places you go, either looking at the industry in general or looking more broadly at different things that you look for inspiration?
well, aside from walking through Home Depot, it's to me you know first of all is just coming up with some sort of story to hang it on.
Mm.
Let's it can be very simple because it's mostly about the puzzles, but you want to put a through line. It's like when the video game industry, I mean, it hit a point where mechanics kind of no longer mattered. There's still at least some crazy unique games that every once in a while come out that have unique mechanics. Excuse me. But when it started off, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Centipede, all these games, the mechanics were incredibly different. Very simple controls. And then when we got into the first person shooter, I think since Castle Wolfenstein, now I can, even though it was on one plane, Sprechen Sie, trying to end up killing Hitler at the end. I had a little bit of story, but the story was go kill Hitler. Not really much of a story. But then the mechanics of controllers became more advanced. As we hit the better PlayStations and things, as we got 3D, it's like Splinter Cell was great because the shadow and light, you could hide in the shadow and they didn't see you. And, there were other games that like the way the AI works. And well, that was fun. But now people like at this point, when I pick up a first person shooter, jump is jump, shoot is shoot, up, down, left, right, run. It's all the same menu. It's all the same. The mechanics now are almost identical. Maybe you have a
Mm,
little tricky thing there, but zoom in and still zoom in if I have a sniper
yeah.
rifle. So the story now takes over. That's where the stories are why people are playing these games. When I played Mass Effect, when I played that series, just
Mm,
blown away by the story.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that series. I think I played it like 3 times,
Hmm.
if not more, actually. I think. Um, but yeah, those BioWare games. Oh, God, BioWare's so good. Yeah, the Knights of the Republic and stuff. I still
Yeah.
play Knights of the Republic. I have it on my
Mhm.
iPad.
Yeah. We were just talking about
Um,
that game the other day.
oh yeah, yeah. It
Hmm.
was, it was so great at the time. Yeah, I love it. But
Nice.
my favorite thing about
Uh,
it too, because I played D&D as a kid. Real quick, sorry, is that when you're playing Knights of the Republic, you can pause it and then look at the numbers behind what you did, and it shows
mhm.
the dice roll and the defense plus this what you had an attack. Like, so I love being able to look at the math, like pause it and go, "Ooh, man, that critical hit was better than having the +2 damage or whatever
Yes.
percentage." Yeah, it's fun. Anyway, sorry, you're.
No, I was just saying, like, story for me again, that's the world building piece that I'm very interested in as well. And I think you're right. That's the engaging part at this point. Like, there are some innovations and puzzles that I've seen in different places, but largely, you're dealing with a puzzle to solve that's either got a physical solution or some sort of a digital input or something like that. So you're solving that. Are there any projects that are coming up that you're working on that have some new, I guess, is it mechanics that you're looking to build, or is it more just, again, that world building aspect of it that you're working on these days?
Well, as far as escape rooms, I've been doing a lot of consulting lately, and so that is kind of leading me more towards like in my spare time creating these self-resetting puzzles, but also in a lot of these events there's stuff that you couldn't normally do because it's too much of a mess, or but if you're just having a singular event, you now can do it. So you keep the costs down, and then it's just part of an event. So you're going station to station, they just kind of decorate the rooms. No one's expecting high craftsmanship. They just put up a, if you're in a jungle, they just have one of those giant you know photography backdrops and whatnot. So you make it, you do what you can. So it looks like a very, I want to say cheap, but essentially, aesthetically, it's just like it's very simple. We got a case, we got this, we got that, because they don't have the budget for it. But they only need to do it once. So in the last one I did, I put their not plaster of Paris, but like the clay that dries when you put it out in the air, the dragon clay. I can't think of what it's called. And had the key in there, and so let it harden and mark the rock. So there's something special about this rock or something that's written on it. And it's not until you get to the last part and you get a hammer and you realize you have to smash open this thing, and you smash it open and there's the key, and it's like, oh, and you can bang it and the
Wow.
key's inside. Now you can't, I mean, you're going to go through so much if you have
Yeah.
that in a regular escape room, or I always like, so I did that and they loved it. People loved at the end smashing the rocks. Like it's in one of the rocks, because you only got to do it once, and just buy a
Right.
bucket of this stuff, make a whole bunch. You're only going through it 4 times. The 4 groups. So yeah, you only need to make 4 of them. That's it, and you're
Mm.
done. So I've been trying to find out, keeping costs. I've been just playing in that realm because I'm working on another book, or 2 actually right now. So a lot of my focus has been on that, but I still, because I do the consulting, and I then drop all the writing and I just go crazy trying to think of stuff. I still
Mm.
want to do a puzzle where there's a key in a large block of ice in a bird cage. And you got to figure out how to heat that, and somehow
Oh,
involve a hair dryer or something.
oh,
It's like,
nice.
it's right there. How do I watch what people are trying to do?
Yeah.
How do you, I don't know, just stuff like that you can't do otherwise. It might make a mess. Like, the cleanup's going to be at the end of the day, it'll be a pain in the ass. But those are fun when you have those one-time events. I get called for like festivals and stuff like that to design the stuff.
I wonder if you could
And
do like a modeled thing that's transparent that you can see the key through, but there's a sensor for heat. So it's not actual ice that melts, but when you do hit a blow dryer on it, it triggers the release of whatever's holding the key and it drops out or something like that. So you get the sense
yeah,
that you're heating it up, but that sounds really cool.
yeah, I would say a nice simple way to do that is what's called a read hall sensor is a
Mm.
switch. Or do you know what a read hall sensor is?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, and so you put magnets in the bottom of four fake or fake candles. Well, the ones that look pretty good that have a little
Yeah.
flicker,
Yeah.
but they're not actually hot. And so essentially, when you put the four candles that you procure from wherever onto the three circles or four circles or whatever, then that would trigger.
There you
It
go.
looks like a block of ice, so that would
Yeah.
absolutely work. And it
That's
drops
cool.
the. So yeah, let's see that would work. That one, the reset's pretty easy. You just put the key
Yeah.
back up in.
I really like the approach that you talked about earlier in making sure that when people leave the room, they're given a positive exit. Like that to me was one of my biggest takeaways from our conversation is like giving people that positive experience, the ability to feel smarter than they think they are, or like, you know, just again, it's like a positive morale boost rather than, yeah, sorry, you weren't smart enough to figure out this room, you know.
Yeah.
That to me was something I don't see a lot in terms of maybe you didn't get out on time, but you did complete 3 out of 4 puzzles, you know, that's a silver medal or whatever. Those ideas I think are what can turn someone from, well, we didn't get out, I don't like those things because I don't feel like I'm not, that's not how my brain works or whatever, to we're so close, like I would want to try it again to get that last one. You know, that's a way more positive experience for people who are experiencing escape rooms, so that instead of just stopping and never doing another escape room in their life, they go and
Right.
seek out another one to try to, again, challenge themselves rather than just giving up. So I really like
Yeah.
that.
And hopefully that, like if it is a different company and they don't do that, they're still going to go, oh yeah, well, we saw that you've planted in them that you did okay.
Yeah.
Depending on how they end that experience.
Yeah.
And it'd be fun too to give awards to people, like simple things that are like, fast, you were the fastest of that puzzle
Yeah.
and you had the best out of the box thinking from what we observed. Like, and just give two
Right.
members, stuff like that. You also made me think, how do you turn a negative into a positive? What if what you didn't realize till the very end, regardless of how much you did, that you were working for the bad guy? And had you won,
Mm.
the building would have exploded or whatever.
Oh, I love that.
And it's just like, wait a minute. You're like, what?
Like a double agent.
Yeah, it's like they tricked you. Da, 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 da. Like,
Yeah.
you thought you failed, but you actually saved the day. Even
I
if
love
some
that.
story
Yeah.
wise, and they know that that's not it, but it makes them feel good. And when their friends says how it goes, we saved it from blowing up. It's great. Let them
I
let
like
them feel
that.
it.
That's
Yeah, that would
awesome.
be. You realize that you were actually winning by losing. Whatever,
Yeah.
it's weird, but yeah, that I just love that sort of that's where all the story comes in, the psychology. If you've built up this story, then you can write whatever at that point.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
there was
love that.
so like just to go on what makes it enjoyable, and people loved this. We did it in several rooms. Especially when a group comes in, and we start searching their names on social media, and it's amazing how easy it is to find at least somebody in that group.
Sure.
Oh, that's her, or whatever, that's that guy, and we print out their picture on a wanted poster and put it in the warden's office. So they're looking around, and they're like, "That's you!" And they all like rush to it, and they're like, "What the hell?" Because we could sneak into that room because it was still locked, and we had another one like that where before they unlock, it was basically a what do you call like a credenza against the wall. But what they didn't know is there's a hole cut in the back of the credenza, and we could remove and put something in there that wasn't in there before. But that wasn't the point of it. Is that we know that they can't open it yet, and so we would do the same thing, but make it look like a Polaroid. And part of that clue, once they opened that up, they found a little strong box, and in that strong box were a bunch of Polaroids. and one of
Mm.
them's them because we take a Polaroid of their picture, and we're able to sneak it in while they're doing the game, and it's got a hidden back wall, so they have no idea like how the fuck we've been in here the whole time. So they finally
That's the
open it up, and
magician
then
in you, right?
yes, that's the magician
Yeah.
in me, because they're like, what? And the fact that it's on a Polaroid, they're
Yeah.
like, what? And it blows their mind, and they have a souvenir.
That's so great.
So
I love that.
so a detail like that will always bring them back. Like that, make the experience fun, just like you said.
Well, and not just
Um,
that, but that's something that people are going to refer people like, you got to see this thing that they do. It's super unique. You're going to get this thing, and like that's a great engagement tactic too. I love that.
yeah, and ways to make it easier too is, like I said, if there are 5 puzzles that need to be solved to open the door, we'll say the final puzzle or whatever.
Yeah.
Is you only need 4 of them, and it can be
Yeah.
any 4. Now, if someone gets all 5, they get a bonus. You're the only one who got all 5. It's like on video games, like
Yeah.
going
It's
all
a
the way
side
back
quest.
to little side quests. But it's like you can also, there's a point when you can brute force an answer. If I gave you a 4-digit combination lock and you didn't know what the 4th number was, well, the first 3, you just go through and you're good.
Yeah.
So that's why that secondary piece of information, the map room information, it's like, why doesn't this code work? You must do it in a mirror. That can guarantee that they have to use all of them. Yes. That final kicker. But then it's okay if you only need 3 whatevers to open the thing. There's better chance of winning, but then you give accolades to the people who got all of them.
Right.
It's like, you solved the room. You got the minimum required, the 3 puzzles, and they feel good, but you got out. So I feel good.
Yeah.
But you got all the puzzles right, and you got out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you feel good. We don't want them to lose. We don't want them to have a bad time. So there's many different ways. So get rid of the binary, you win, you lose. How can they always win?
I love that.
Even when they lose.
Awesome.
So there you go, I guess.
Okay.
Because I talked about the people who are not good, but they all have their moment.
Yeah.
I did this with my business partner and a couple other friends. We decided to check out this one. It was a train and whatever. But his dad came along. His dad's like, I don't have any idea. He's kind of just watching, right? And it's just like, oh, good job, son. Just, not that he didn't want it. He's trying, but he's just not a problem solver. Well, the final puzzle was a Morse code. Oh. And it's like, well, we need to know. He goes, oh, I got this. Or you had to put in Morse code. And he just goes up to the thing and he's like, he goes, I was in the Navy. And he was so excited because we were running out of time. And like to get it right, it could be a pain in the ass. But he's like, I didn't think I'd be using that. So like he got his moment. So, that moment of glory, which I don't think they did that on purpose, but how great is that when you do know it? It's like, I can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like, that's one of the reasons why I asked you about roles for escape rooms, because I think there are those people who aren't sure that they're going to be a good collaborator or will be able to positively contribute to people being in there. And I think when you have those unexpected moments where I'm actually helpful here, again, it goes back to that positivity, the feeling that you're contributing to the overall success of the group, that I think people really feel like that's that positive connection that they're able to provide. So that's super cool.
Yeah, it's fun. I just realized another good one is, those locks that you get they put a key in, like when you're looking at a property and you push the little buttons and the door opens. Did you know that you don't have to put them in any order?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, those are the buttons that need to be pressed in, but they're numbered.
Okay.
Which is great for making someone feel smarter when it's like, well, we have the numbers, but we don't know what order it's in.
Right.
Try 1, 5, 2. I got it on the first try.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's just the way that lock is built. And if they do know it's the way the lock is built, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, because we got the numbers. But
awesome.
So I just thought of that from what you were saying. Just like what incredible moments. See, now you got my brain going all.
Yep.
All right. Even though I couldn't figure out how to get the Zoom started. All right.
All right. We made it.
Well, thank you very much for reaching out, and hopefully this is helpful. And if you need some follow-up, just let me know.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thank you.